Hi, my name is Deneen Felshaw. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a few things that I have learned in the past 3 weeks of family life education based on the book Family Life Education, Principle and Practices for Effective Outreach by Duncan and Goddard. In Chapter 1, I found it interesting that defining family education has no definition, but it does rely on several sets of principles. I also found interesting the American land grant university system, the Morrill Act. This act gave land to different states for furthering education and building education like colleges and other institutions. This was to promote education to the people and especially promote home economics and family ecology. The Smith-Lever Act, also an act instituted by the government, was based on family life education to the community. I also liked in Chapter 1 talking about the diverse audiences that you will face, that you will have as you are a family life educator. And it talked about making sure that in your audience that you reach out to everyone, not just the select few. It talked about those that are at risk and those that are most in need of family life education. The Administration for Children and Families was a government support for those that are underprivileged or in at-risk environments. The Professional Association and Professionalization of Family Life Education talked about the National Council on Family Relations, NCFR for short. This is the council that has come with a certified family life educator program. And many colleges, including BYU Idaho, has based their curriculum on the requirements for a certified family life educator. They do have a test that you can take that will allow you to become a SFLE, Certified Family Life Educator. Some of the different approaches to teaching family life education is there's the expert, someone who is like a school teacher who stands in front of the class and lectures. There is the facilitator, and this person usually leads the participants in the direction of self-discovery. The critical inquirer is similar to the facilitator, but they often use leading questions. So they question the participant and help them to self-awareness and self-discovery. The collaborator works with participants to tailor learning their specific needs. So basically they talk to the participant and ask and figure out what they need most, and then they work with, like the expert, they work to teach them those things that they are in most need of. The interventionist is one who wants to see change, who helps the participants change their behaviors so that they are happier and better. The eclectic one is one that I can relate to most. I would probably be one that would be more of an eclectic family life educator, using the different approaches. Sometimes lecture is needed, sometimes an interventionist is needed, and sometimes someone who helps people to self-awareness and self-discovery. My beliefs in family education is that I believe that family is the core root to society, and that the family is an eternal in nature. I believe that families are not only pre-Earth life, but also post-Earth life. I believe that there is a need for education and strengthening families, and that there is a battle in the world today, and that there are many people who need to be family life educators to help battle against the forces of evil, Satan's plan to derail the family. I think that better education and follow through on matters of divorce is something that needs to be need to have more strength in. I think that there are put in place already parenting programs that have very little follow up and follow through, and making sure that those programs are being followed through with. And I think that that's where some of the changes in family life education can be helpful. I believe in healing and building centers for families, not just helping people change or heal from problems and crises, but to help build families stronger and make them more fortified against the world and the crises that come up. In chapter 2, it talked mostly about prevention, and some of the prevention things. Primary prevention is the basic education of families before any issues arise. And secondary prevention is those families that may not have problems right now, but are in an at-risk situation. And then the tertiary is a family who's already in crisis and already needs help in changing and pulling themselves out, coping and pulling themselves out of crisis. There are 5 stages of developing programs. Excuse me. I added 1 at the end, so I have 6 total. First one is problem analysis, and this defines the problem thoroughly. And then program design, you want to find goals and resources and materials. And pilot testing, make sure you practice using practice audiences and to get a feel for how the program is going to work. And then advanced testing, maybe using small groups of your targeted audience, and then continue improvement and change as you work with these groups. Using experimental different avenues of way you can make the program work. Dissemination, further the program for more participants. This is where you take it globally or community, or you make it into a wider range of people. And I added at the end evaluation assessment. And even though you feel like your program is set and ready to go and ready for the masses, I think every time the program is given, there should be a set of evaluation assessment that should be done to help continue to further improve and change the program as needed for whatever audience you have. Successful programs in the community will involve everyone from the audience to the support system to the presenter. In chapter 16, it talks about marketing. And I found this one interesting because you don't always think about marketing family life education, but yes, family life education is in the very beginning, it said low participation because it is not marketed well. So I understand now why marketing would be important. It talks about understanding the audience, and I find in my communication class that this is very important. This first thing they teach is to make sure you know who your audience is and who you're talking to. The second one is making it visible and accessible to everybody. Another one was appearance. Facilitate from the facility to the presenter. You should make it look good. You should look good as a presenter, and the facility you are working in needs to be something that people are comfortable in. If it's a dirty facility, people aren't going to want to be there. Promotion, making sure that the program is promoted and that people are aware of it. And then partnerships, using people around you in the existing community and the existing programs that can help facilitate your workshop or your program, as well as helping to promote it. A lot of things in marketing, you need to foster change. I liked how each of the 8 characteristics are already taught in our church auxiliaries, and I kind of related the 8 characteristics in that you find to our church and some of the doctrine that it teaches. First thing, it talks about risk. Everyone is at risk, and I believe that too. We have Satan fighting against us every day, and everybody has a chance to fall. I never would have believed that my ex-husband would have made the choices he did, but he let his guard down, and he did, and it was the hardest thing for me to see. The second one was obedience. following through on your program or believe that your program will work. Obedience lowers the risk and can prevent it from happening, problems from happening. Second one is believing that you'll be happy or that it will have a positive outcome. And I put happiness comes from obedience. And the next one is attitude, or living the gospel with positive attitude. And the next one I put faith in the atonement, is believing and moving forward. And last I put peace from knowing you are doing what is right. There's two more, sorry. Positive peer pressure, working together as a group and supporting one another as we do each Sunday. And then the freedom to progress. I found this one was very interesting, that we have choices, and that as we have choices to choose, like in the scriptures it talks about, as we choose the right, we have more freedom than we would if we were bound by sin and chained. So we have the freedom to progress when we do what is right, and we make positive choices. In chapter 18, it talked about improving family life education, and I touched a little bit on this, but it talked about testing and reevaluating studies and statistics and making sure that they are strong, continued studies and evaluation, using strongly supportive materials in in the family life education. There's a lot of things out there that aren't quite strong or even founded on scientific or case study analysis. And so you have to be careful on what you use. I would like to see a more well-rounded approach to the education of family life. I'd like to see that family life education is more than workshops and lectures from what I normally see that I've been exposed to. I'd like to see it more interactive. I would like to see the workshops be more of a hands-on workshop, and that you facilitate more than just teaching a certain type. I think I would love to see a workshop where we're shooting hoops and we're talking about a certain thing that has to do with family life, and you use the hoops as an object lesson. I'd love to see a family life workshop where you're teaching new parents how to take care of a brand new baby when they're crying. And I know they have certain things like this, but to facilitate those like they do in high school, there's programs where the high school students have to take home babies that have chips in them that start to cry and those sort of things. And so I think those are education things that I would like to see more hands-on. In Appendix A, some of the principles that are found are order, and it talked about how behavior has consequences, and that everything that happens in an order of behavior and consequences. Next one was the principle of empathy, understanding what the other is feeling. And then the principle of agency. Basically, we've talked about this, of freedom to choose. Principle of momentum, the movement of choices made and the directions they take us. And then the the principle of loss, a sacrifice. Sometimes you have to give up something for the greater good. Sometimes it comes in choosing to leave an abusive spouse, or sometimes it's choosing to do tough love on a child that is having a hard time. Principle of integrity, doing what is right always, even when no one is looking. The principle of movement. I have to put change here, and I know later it talks about change again, but I think the principle of movement and the principle of change go together very well. Principle of goodness. And this one talked about protecting others, and I put charity next to that one because I think goodness and charity go hand in hand. When you're looking out for one another and taking care of one another, that is goodness. Principle of chaos. Bad things do happen. And the principle of discovery, learning new things and trying to better ourselves and further our education. Principle of synergy. I really like this one, working together and to make things better. And the principle of legacy. Last, I found this the best one to have for last. The principle of legacy. What will you leave? What will people talk about you after you've passed on? How will your children, your grandchildren think of you? Will they think positively? I found this principle a very strong one, as we talk a lot about generations and genealogy, and we often talk about pioneer heritage and the early foundations of the church. And I think that legacy is something that, as we make our choices and we have integrity and we show goodness and charity, that we will leave a lasting legacy. So these are my thoughts of the last couple weeks. I appreciate talking to you about them, and thank you very much.